Hi there. For this month's soap challenge, I'm going to attempt the Taiwan swirl. I love all kind of swirls and I can't wait to give this one a go. So I've chosen my colours here already. I'm not going to use them as they are right here. I'm going to blend some of them. But I've chosen some really bright neon colours this time. And look here, the pink. I mean, it looks a bit red, but it's actually proper quite pink. Then I've got a blue. It comes under the category of neon blue. It's not as neon as you'd think, but it's a lovely strong blue. Then the yellow is really quite bright. It doesn't come across on the camera that well here tonight. And the green, again, it comes under the category of neon green, but it's just a really nice solid green. Then I'm also going to use black. This one is a sparkly black mica. And of course, last but not least, I will need my fragrance oil, which I'm going to add right at the end. So I also have this tool, if you want to call it a tool. It's just a pencil, but I think it works well. So before I got started, I made a note of everything I need and how much needs to go in which section, just so I was, not starting too late dividing up all my batter. So we've got 282 grams going in each one of my sections. And then obviously if it's a black pink mix like here, it'll be 141 each, whereas the yellow is a full 282 grams, the black is a whole 282 grams, and then the final section, which is a blend of green and blue, again they would have 141 each. So overall for black I need 422, etc, etc, etc. A lot of maths involved here to not get it wrong, and obviously I wanted to make sure I didn't have to do all those maths as I went along. So I've got pink, yellow, green, blue. Need smaller containers of the ones of 141 for ones like here at the top, and then full ones of the others. Right, let's get started. In terms of molds, I have one of those loaf molds with the dividers. You can see that's a cardboard one. Couldn't find one of them. But it's these individual inserts you can take in, out. You can also turn this round depending on how many dividers you want to be using. And I often don't use those 3 dividers, and I just couldn't quite work out where one went. So if you don't have a professional setup, like a shop board, a divider set, you can simply make some out of cardboard yourself and use it that way. So even though this is a proper set, I will still have to hold this down a little bit when I start pouring so nothing seeps through. So I will pour all in the individual sections first, and then afterwards I'm taking these out and then use my tool to create the swirling design. But obviously I'm going to talk you all the way through once I'm doing this. So you can see here I'm showing you I'm going essentially up, slightly across, down, slightly across, up, slightly cross, down, and so on until I have reached the end of the mold. Obviously you need to have the right consistency so the soap drags along with your tool and doesn't get stuck basically, or muddles up too much if it's too runny. Now I did make one of those designs yesterday already. This was my first attempt for the soap challenge, and I had a blue and purple on one side, then white, orange, and then a swirls again of 2 different colours, the red at the end. On the other side, it looks completely different in terms of the design. You can see here the lines are very different, but obviously once cut, it's got another design in the centre again. So I took my pencil, like you see here, dragged it across, went over a bit, up again, over, down, and so on, and created these kind of lovely patterns here. However, when you then finished with it going across, what I then did at the very end to create those kind of curvy design, I dragged the pencil all the way around the sides, as you can see here. But you will see that in action when I do this with today's template in a minute. So all we need now is our mix. Safety first though, get our gloves on. We need to make sure that the batter is at a light trace. I'll be adding it all to the containers. And then at the very last end, I add a fragrance oil just so it doesn't have an impact too much on how my batter will develop. So here we go. I just did that off camera. There's no point you watching that. I'll wait them all out, and I've got the correct amount of batter in each colour section. I also pre-blended the colours so they wouldn't have unpleasant spots in there. Then you've got your bright yellow. It is in real actually a lot brighter still, but you can see that my batter is just really nice and fluid. So I'm really happy at this point. I was constantly keeping an eye on how my batter developed, and I was getting a little concerned, thinking, what if there's a lot of steps involved. What if it thickened up too quickly? But it did actually work really nicely in the end. So the green, again, very solid colour, and I use the same stirring stick, what do you call them? The stirring thingies, spatula, for the blue, because going from green to blue is not massive issue. I would now not put that one in the yellow, that would just muddle up my colours. So we've got the solid blue, we've got the solid green, and here is my pink. And like I said, on the camera it looks quite red, but it's actually really, really bright pink. You will see later on when I hold the camera in my hand and go closer, it's actually really quite pink. So these are all nicely blended together. There's no colour spots, and that's really, I'm quite happy with that. And then finally, we also have the black. Remember, this was a bigger portion, not all to be poured into the one segment, but in one is a whole black segment, but the other one was a black pink swirl. But that's the reason why they're small in this particular section. I'm very happy with how the colours are now. The consistency is brilliant. The colours are all vibrant, solid, and like I said, no colour spots, nothing. So I'm just adding the fragrance oil quickly, but I'm doing that off camera because, again, there's no point you watching all of that. And then I'm just checking for consistency, and I think it's just right. So this is the time to get the mould out, get everything set up and ready. And this is kind of the moment of truth. Is it all going to work out? Again, I apologise, the camera could be a slightly better angle. I'm trying to adjust it here so you can see a little bit better, but for some reason it kept going a bit out of focus and has a slightly, you can see it's much better here right now. It's got a slightly foggy look to it. So this I really recommend, just double check what's supposed to go where so you don't mess it up, especially when you're a bit stressed and worrying about your batter. In that first section, you can see I'm holding it down now. I'm pouring black along the one side of the wall, essentially, of the mould, whilst I try to pour the pink against the other end. So in this case, the top end of the wall. Just because I didn't want to have a marbled effect. I wanted them slightly, bottom side black and then pink at the top. They will obviously mix to some extent, otherwise I would have to use a divider. But they did behave pretty well. You can see the black doesn't go all the way around to the other side. Just one word on one warning aspect, really. If you don't like mess, I do apologise. I'm normally quite neat with my soaping and clean up in between. But in this case, I just wanted to make sure that I focus on getting the soap ready and done before it thickens up. You can see I didn't put too much pink and black in, but I really wanted to fill, not to the top, but fill quite a bit of yellow in just to seal each compartment at the bottom, which is why I also now pour a lot of the black in there, just so it doesn't seep through and muddle the colours at the bottom end. So we've got pink and black in the first one, we've got quite a bit of yellow in the second section, the solid black in the third section, and then at the other end I want to be pouring the green and the blue. Again, the green was supposed to go against the, from our view, bottom wall, whereas the blue was going to go along the top wall. Kind of worked, but what would have been better if my mould had been standing on one of those swirling plates, I could have turned the mould round. Do not attempt to turn the mould around like it is now. Chances are something's going to get muddled up and one of your dividers slides or leaves a gap and it all moves through. So I try to move around the mould, go left and right to it, but essentially it's again blue towards one end of the section and green along the other end, and just making sure it doesn't go into, in this case, the black, so to speak, underneath it. Not very good with explaining my directions here, but you can see the consistency is lovely, and I'm pouring pretty much all the way to the top for this now, because the other sides are obviously sealed off, so nothing's going to move there. It's just wondering whether the batter is going to thicken up, but this was thankfully not a problem in my case. Now do bear in mind that even if you fill up all the way to the top of the mould, by default, once you pull out the dividers, you're going to lose volume essentially, because obviously the dividers themselves take up a little bit of space. So when you pull them out, your whole soap is going to, your mix is going to sink down a little bit. So if you have colour left in your container, that's a great opportunity to then fill it up. Because I had quite a lot in already, I wasn't too fussed, and I actually made just some lovely multicolored soaps for us to use at home with a leftover. But that's a good way to kind of use up and not waste any leftover soap. So yeah, I'm just filling up in the wet section. You can see it's getting all a little bit messy from our current view. But trust me, inside the soap is all perfectly where it should be. So I'm just really carefully pouring the black. I really did not want this to drip into my yellow colour and muddle up, obviously, the colours there. You could always scoop with a spoon any kind of small spots off the top. But if it really drips in, you're kind of creating some drop swirls, which might be nice, but was not what I was aiming for this design. Right, I've just cut the video short a little bit because there's no need for you to see me filling up the rest here. But here I'm just scraping down the soap, trying to save as much as I can, so it just doesn't get all left on the dividers and, you know, lost in the end product. But like I said, I didn't actually use all the leftover soap from the containers to pour on here, which is, once the dividers are removed, is a good opportunity to do. I just created that for some lovely little soaps for my family here at home. Don't forget the end dividers as well. So from the top, it looks like it's blue, green, black, yellow, pink, or red in the video. There is black as well, but the final bit right at the top looked more pink. So going straight, instead of normally I would clean up a little bit, going straight in with a tool. I've got my pencil here. I'm basically going down 1 or 2 centimeters across, up, again 1 or 2 centimeters across, down, up, across, over, down. So, I mean, it's self-explanatory. You keep repeating the motions here. And you can see the consistency here is really just what you want. It's not too fluid that it would just all end up being muddled and being one, you know, muddly soup there. Neither is it too thick, because if you end up with soap batter that is too thick, then clearly the soap doesn't move along with your tool as you desire, and it would probably still create a lovely design, but it wouldn't drag along enough to create the swirls. So once I've reached the very end, so I've got another 2-3 lines to go, you could stop and your design would look pretty much as it is now. But if you want the swirling look, you then want to go around the outside of the mold like I do here. And you can see that it starts to drag and create kind of the curved swirls. I only did 2 goes of that. I could have probably now had another 2-3 rounds. It just really, it's personal choice how much you want the design to be swirled, like going sideways as well as across. Finally, I get my opportunity to clean up my molds. Maybe I'm a bit obsessive about that, but I just like having clean surfaces. But like I said, in this particular case, my priority was getting the soap done. Now, this particular top right now doesn't actually look as exciting, but bear in mind that the top is not what the soap's going to look like at the end. You are going to actually shave off a thin top layer and then obviously half the soap as well. And I'll show you that later. For now that I've taken the camera off the stand, I should say, and this is actually what the colours look like. I was doing this late in the evening and this has got a flash, but actually these are true reflections of what the colours look like. I mean, it's exciting. That's the wet soap top. And like I said, bear in mind the very top does get shaven off and then it gets halved again. So the finished soap will look different. Magically, we are now a couple of days later. Here is the soap. It's in the mold. It's dry. I can now touch it. I don't need gloves. You might want to keep gloves on to avoid fingerprints and that. But yeah, it's time to take it out of its mold. So bottom, very surprising, looks totally different to the top, but it doesn't matter. I think it's a really cool design at the bottom. But that's obviously not the design I was after, but I still kept a couple of those bars in the finished photos. You cannot actually see this massively, but this is one of those horizontal cutters. You don't need one of those. And I was always told, oh, don't worry, you don't need a horizontal cutter, just cut it by hand. You can totally do that, but it's absolutely completely transformed how kind of perfect the soaps look at the end if they are properly horizontally cut, rather than me judging this with my judgment. That's just never quite straight. So here I'm just shaving off a very, very thin layer at the top. You can see in some parts it's not even completely taking the entire top layer off, but I just tidied that up with my bevel in the end. I didn't want to lose too much, but just see now, just taking off that top layer. Here we go. That's already quite a different look. Like I said, this is still very much to the top, and I was hoping that cutting through the actual center would give me an even better design from the proper inside of the soap. So all the magic really happens once you do the horizontal cutting. So I will show you the next step as well once I've cut through this. So you can see that's a good depth, and basically I'm going to cut right in the middle through that, and that's going to be it. So I've got this here. You can see it's now, I've changed the height of it. I could have done it easier. I could have not had the height high at the beginning and just cut it in a different way, but basically I overcomplicated it slightly. But this is now taking this soap proper into half, and this is the actual finished design that I was after. So let's see what that looks like in a moment. Here we go, bottom parts again. Now moment of truth, dividing it, opening it up. Ta-da! I'm really quite happy with how this came out, but obviously you could have it the other way around. So you could have the blue parts in the center and creating a whole completely different design with it. The only thing I'd say is if you cut them, obviously you will, into lots of different pieces, and you want to see the mirror effect, make sure you know which piece went where. I hope you found this video useful, and I just want to say thank you very much to everyone who voted for me in the soap challenge this month and placed me in 3rd place for this design. I was really excited and very happy with it. Amy kindly informed me that now I'm moving up to the winners category, so I'm going to have to compete against the most professional, most outstanding soap maker. So wish me luck, but thank you very much for watching today. Bye.